Hey everybody, and welcome to the channel. Today I'm talking about HOAs in new construction communities, the untold truths for Florida home buyers, where I'm going to cover builder control, turnover, reserves, capital contribution fees, and what happens once the builder is gone. Now I know you may not know what all of these terms mean, but you will when I'm done. I'm Robin Vakai, the broker owner of Beach Bay Real Estate and a certified financial planner for 25 years. You're watching Suncoast South, where I share the real story of the Venice housing market, neighborhoods, and communities, what you need to know about the cost of home ownership, and what it's like to live here. Now let's get into what you need to know about HOAs in new construction communities in Southwest Florida. So what an HOA is, it's also called a homeowners association, and it's not the same as a condo association. HOAs are mini governments, and they're organized under the laws of Florida, the Florida Statutes, Chapter 720. So you can search that and go there and read up on all the rules and restrictions and regulations as they pertain under Florida law to homeowners associations. When you buy a home that's in an HOA, you agree to abide by the rules, restrictions, and regulations as written in the governing documents, and I'm going to get to that. So the governing documents are basically, they rule the roost. They're the rules to live by for the community. They're officially called the Declaration of Covenants and Restrictions, and these are recorded with the county clerk in order to be enforceable. So whatever county the property is located in, you can go to the official records in the county and search. It's a little painstaking because you have to know the exact filed name of the HOA, but you can find them there. And the only way they're enforceable is if they are recorded with the county clerk. So amendments to the governing documents can happen over time. Early on, the developer controls everything and they can make amendments. It does happen. It's unusual as they get closer to the turnover mark, another thing I'm going to talk about. So anyway, they have to be recorded with the county clerk. The documents include things like rules, the regulations, restrictions, the bylaws, how the community actually operates, how you elect officers, how they conduct meetings and send out notices, all of that. And that's stuff that you will need to know. So during the builder-controlled phase, the builder-developer runs the HOA, basically because they own all the lots, and the lots are what give votes. So homeowners can attend meetings if they're even really announced, but they obviously have little say. So the builder gets to vote based on their ownership of all the unsold lots. And until sales in the community really exceed 50% of home sites, the builder runs the show and they do what they want. Now that's got to be done within the guidelines of the governing documents, but they still control the board. So now let's talk about dues, HOA fees while they're marketing the community. So obviously lower fees help them sell homes. So they do not generally fund reserves for replacement costs of major structures that are within the community. So things like, the clubhouse building, the pool, the roads, which will at some point need resurfacing. And within HOA communities, they are typically private roads. So at some point, the association will be responsible for that. So what happens is the reserves are typically not funded from the time of construction. So we're building a new home community. Let's say they're talking about a 2 to 5 year build out, and that varies by community. They're not going to start funding the road replacements and the roof replacement for the clubhouse until turnover happens. So what I say is what the builder is advertising as HOA fees, you can expect those to rise whenever we hit the turnover standpoint and reserves are added to the budget. Now, the reality of reserves, they're used to cover those replacement costs. And I just talked about the clubhouse roof, pool resurfacing, maybe fitness equipment. If there's a fitness room that needs to be updated, repaired, replaced. The roads, of course, are a big one. Pool pumps, irrigation pumps, gates in communities. If the community is gated, those over time need to be replaced and upgraded. So the way the Florida statutes are written, if the builder doesn't fund these reserves from the beginning, they don't have to fund them. So no reserves equals no funding obligation. So once they are created, the builder must fund them unless the members vote to waive them. And that's why the builder doesn't generally fund their reserves. So the marketing piece versus the reality, the builder budgets look pretty good on paper. HOA fees are typically lower during construction and costs rise after turnover because we have to add on a lot of costs. So keep that in mind. Now, there's another common misconception that I like to share with people. People see on their closing statement when you're buying new, or it's on the very bottom of the fine print with the community fees, HOAs, little print, CDDs if there is one. There's also a fee called a capital contribution fee. And many people mistakenly believe that these fees are funding reserves. I've had many people tell me that, and I tell them that's not the case. So when you ask the question, where's the capital contribution fee going? It's actually going into the general fund and helping the builder fund community operations with current sales. So they're just used for general expenses. No reserve funding. So anyway, communities often start with little to no funding in reserves with a few exceptions. So now, when do homeowners take over? And that really is, the term we use is turnover. And this means when the community turns over from the builder-developer control to homeowner control. And when does that happen? Well, most of these boards with the builder, they'll have between 3 to 5 board seats, depending on, back to the governing documents, what they say. Most will establish a minimum. Typically it's 3, sometimes it's 5, but you have to read each document for a specific community. So what the Florida statutes say is when the builder has sold 50% of the lots/homes in the community. I don't mean sold that it's pending, sold to be built. I mean sold and closed. Okay? Then the homeowners get 1 seat on that board, whether it's 3 members or 5 members. At 90% sold, that's when there's what we call majority control. The builder may keep 1 of the seats, but all the rest of the seats have to be turned over to the homeowners, okay? And that process is really when turnover is effective, at the 90% sold and closed mark, not under contract. And when we reach the point of 96% sold, the homeowners get all seats on the board. Now, what's the length of time? Basically, it's those lot sales, and that's what's going to rule the day. So you may want to ask when you're considering a community, what is the anticipated build-out time? And most of them know an approximate build-out time. And of course, a lot of that depends on market conditions and how quickly sales happen. So obviously during the pandemic, during COVID-19, builders completed projects at a faster rate than they may have over the long term. So ask, at least you have a guideline. And turnover can happen early only if a builder goes bankrupt or stops maintaining the community. And that's a whole other, legal discussion. But I've not seen that happen in my time here, and I'm in my 11th year here in the Venice market area. So how do homeowner board elections happen? Well, once they're getting close to, both those marks, the 50% mark when the homeowners get 1 seat and the 90% mark when they get the majority of the seats. The property manager that works for the builder developer will send out some notice. Oh, you can nominate whomever you want to serve at that 1 seat, 50%, and then fill the rest of the seats. So there is like a nominations process. People can put their name in. They may fill out a form and volunteer. But the bylaws in the governing documents, the Declaration of Covenants and Restrictions, are what rule the day. So what the bylaws say is how that process happens. So then once the owners nominate, they vote for their board at annual meetings. And there are steps both in the Florida statutes and in the documents that say how that process has to work. So now there are some education requirements. They've increased some of this. That was in some legislation that passed and became effective in July of 2024. But all HOA board members and condo association board members must take an early, let's call it an initial certification program. And that's usually within 90 days of filling a seat on the board. Now there's also a continuing education component. So if there's less than 2,500 parcels in the community, 2,500 home sites, however you want to look at it, they have to take an additional 4 hours a year of CE credits to maintain their board seats. And if there are more than 2,500 parcels, it's 8 hours a year. So what are the requirements other than that for people to serve on a board of a homeowners association? None. There are no special qualifications. Most boards are volunteers who are learning as they go, because most of the people who do volunteer, came from someplace else. Living in a homeowners association may be their first time. But what we like to see is a balance of mix and skills to yield better results for operations. Now, what I've experienced is there are different groups of people who try to run for the board. Ones we call the helpers. They basically just want to improve their community. The power seekers who enjoy just being in control. Single issue owners who, are running for the board because they want one issue resolved or implemented. Volunteers, they just want to fill the empty seats. And the watchdogs who focus on transparency. So those are, in my experience, the different personality types who may run for the board. The reality of serving on a board is it's a thankless, unpaid, and time-consuming job. And that's in my experience. It requires a lot of teamwork and patience. And like I said, there is a lot to learn about the statutes and the operations of a homeowners association. I've done it. It's rewarding. It's also demanding. It's challenging, and it definitely can cause high blood pressure. There are a lot more complaints than there are thanks in my experience. But, some of the communities that have been around for a long time, hey, they've ironed out all the wrinkles. So they went through all these challenging things already. So after turnover, when we get to the point of, hey, we're at 90%, we send out the notices, we say we're going to nominate people who's going to run for the board and be elected, because it is an election. So that happens at the annual meeting. The new board gets elected. And there may be a special meeting. I think sometimes that happens. But the developer will pay for an audit. And that is to audit the financing from incorporation startup to when turnover happens. And that's done by, a certified public accountant. And that's a fee that the association incurs. The developer generally pays. Typically, the new board is going to hire counsel, an attorney to represent and advise the HOA on the Florida statutes and their roles and responsibilities under the governing documents. So that may be an increased fee in the budget, because the developer usually has their own counsel on staff, so they're not budgeting the same amount that the association will budget going forward. They often hire a new property manager. Sometimes there are a lot of complaints as the community builds out. People don't like the management. That's not every single case. There are very experienced property management companies that do a great job from startup, and they stay on board during the transition. But it is a high turnover industry, property management. And everybody always thinks, oh, we're going to get it done for a better fee and get better service. So that could be an increased cost. Of course, the board reviews contracts with vendors. They may start doing additional budgeting for other costs and services that they need. They typically evaluate insurance coverage and big items like gate maintenance. And of course, landscape and lawn maintenance, depending on what services are included in the community. Again, back to the governing documents, because the landscaping costs for these massive mowing companies to come in and trim, edge, blow, mow, mulch, that's a huge number in these community budgets to cover often, sometimes thousands of acres of land. The association may also order, the new board, may also order an engineering study. When I served on the board in a new construction community that went through turnover, we did order an engineering study of all the buildings and the structures and to assess, the condition at the time of turnover. They advise that you do that. It costs a significant sum. You can base it on, a minimum of $25,000 if there are, clubhouse and pools and all of that stuff. But that's up to the board if they decide they want to do it. The new board will also begin implementing reserves and replacement costs, because those, as I already told you, haven't been done yet. So they'll also increase insurance coverage. Hire an attorney, I talked about. So what happens with some of these larger expenses? HOA fees typically will increase after turnover. And often all the residents will complain because they bought in at the builder's number and now the HOA fees are going to be higher. But that's the norm. Going into it, you have to be aware reserves are generally not funded in the budget. And of course, over time, if you want your community to stay in the condition that it's in, you have to cover repairs, maintenance, and replacement costs. So it's not mismanagement of the board, it's just covering necessary expenses that the builder hasn't covered prior to turnover. So my advice to you is go in with your eyes opened, be informed, ask what, if any, of the reserves are funded. Don't expect a yes. But there may be things like exterior painting for villas, paired villas, quads or duplexes, that the painting may be covered. Sometimes they do that because the life expectancy of exterior paint in Florida due to weather and heat and sun is not that long. Plan for fee increases after turnover. The HOA fee that's advertised currently is likely not going to be the same. And just bear in mind that the HOA at the time you purchase is not going to be the same as it is 5 years from now when construction is completed. So just keep in mind that early decisions made by the builder will shape long-term expenses. So anyway, I'm Robin Vakai, the broker owner of Beach Bay Real Estate and a certified financial planner for 25 years. You've been watching Suncoast South. If you found this helpful, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming videos. In the upcoming weeks, I'm going to be posting a video. A viewer actually requested some info on some pet-friendly condo communities, maybe with some villas, and that was submitted by Jeffrey. So I am going to be talking about that. I'm going to be doing the Venice area market update now that we have all the September closing numbers. And a bunch of other things, talking about market data and what you need to know for relocating here. Anyway, again, I'm Robin Vakai. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this information helpful. If you did, post a comment, subscribe to the channel. I'd be greatly appreciative, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.